Welcome into this week in Missouri Politics Midweek Update. Uh, Almost Christmas time. Only one more of these until Christmas. Uh, Politics gets busy around pre-filing, then a little bit slower. So I'm going to take some questions today. I've got a backlog from last week, so I'm going to start off. What do you think about the AG's race so far? Bailey came out of the gate strong. Governor's press conference. I don't know what more you could want from a guy. Um, I thought if you watch my show Sunday, he was excellent. He's a very genuine guy. Let's start with the guy that has the job. He's going to raise money. He's got a fund. It's so funny. I mean, I don't, um, controversial lobbyist Steve Tilley hosts fundraiser is one of the Democrats lines that came out. Um, the problem they have with this is the media used to be able to call you controversial and then you were controversial only because they said you were. Now, taking grief from the Post-Dispatch or just, the Democratic Party from the Independent, I I think if that was gonna hurt Steve Tilley, it probably would have already hurt him. I've watched these people say this kinda squirrely stuff about Steve Tilley for a long time, who is a friend of mine. I'll very candid about that. Um, I've seen him do nothing but make more money. So, the other problem they have is it's like when Nicole Galloway wanted to make Tilley part of the governor's campaign. Well, she'd called and asked him for money. So, I don't think you're controversial when everyone in every party asks you for money, and you're the best fundraiser in the state. Um, we'll see. I'm sure that no matter what they do, Steve will get their scorn, and he'll probably love when people know it, and he'll probably make more money. So Tilly's raising money for him. That's a big deal. That assures Bailey will be competitive. I think the legal community is kind of looking for a little bit of a more we're going to put bad guys in jail approach there. I think they're going to be supportive. I think Bailey's story is the best story of anybody that's running a legitimate war hero. He's actually worked in the office. The one person that's done that I know of. Um, then you've got I mean he's a strong candidate. Now, obviously, he's never ran for office before. I always tell you guys, running for office is very, very, very hard to do. So we'll see if he can pull it off. His first race is a big one. Josh Hawley's first race was a big one. Um, but we'll see. I don't know how it ends up shaking out for him on the trail. His media appearances have been good. I hear good reports where he's a very nice guy, very likable. He looks great. He's lost some weight. He, I feel like he'll be a strong candidate. I can't say that for sure, but I'd say all indications are strong. Needs to probably get a consultant lined out and get that part organized. I think it's probably more important for him than other candidates because he never ran before. I think he's in a unique situation where he actually is very, very important there. Um, got a text from a man, like a former Senator Limke. Uh, so I think he's Sharf is a very Sharf's one of the smartest people I've ever got to know personally. Will Will there's two sides to this resume, right? The Greiton stuff will hurt him in some quarters. He was a Greiton's staffer. There's also, I mean, 18% of that primary electorate that, I mean, let's be honest, if you're with Greitens in November, I mean, you're hardcore, right? After all the things that came out, I think, yeah, that'll be a detriment. A lot of people are going to mention that, but there is a core of Greiton supporters. I don't know if they'll go to Will. I don't know and it might shock you that I don't know all of Eric Greiton's internal relationships and how he feels and who he would encourage his supporters to support. But um, so I think that Sharp has a play to them as far as actually who cares. I mean, if the media hates you, that's good for a Republican. So that's good for Will if they bring up the Greitens stuff. Plus, there are those that are Greitens people. So I would say the Greitens thing is a push for him, if not maybe a small positive, as long as the media will hate him for it. That'll be very helpful to him. Really, that's what Bailey needs. He needs some hate from the Star or whatever the Independent will write about him, the Post. That'd be very helpful to him. Sharp's going to run, like they all are, super hard right. Sharp, interesting. He's not a native Missourian, moved here, but he has a ton. When I say a ton, he has a mint of connections in these national groups that'll be very important to that care a lot about the Missouri AG's race for whatever reason. Will Sharf is when you get to know Will, you like him a lot because he's a damn smart. So I personally think that in these national groups he spent a lot of time in. Andrew Bailey, frankly, is been in Warren Montgomery County, right? And he's worked for the governor, so he has not been to whatever the conference of Republican-y lawyery things are. So he's new to that world, but he comes in as the sitting AG, so they're going to want to know him. That's a big plus there. But Will have a lot of that outstate support. They'll naturally be for him, if I had to guess, and he'll have a ton of money. Now, where Will's issue is his story. If you're talking about the Greitens, that was probably bad. If you're talking about him being a former assistant U.S. attorney, that's good. So, depending on how folks introduce him. I mean, I do think that there's some fatigue with some of the folks. It's a little bit of the Trump effect. I think there's a little bit of a fatigue of people that have just been so damn dramatic, and I think Greitens falls into that, maybe more so than even Trump. So I think that's a possible push to maybe slightly positive. If he's talking about him being a former U.S. attorney, I mean, he has a good reputation amongst his peers there. I think that's good for him. Um, the truth with Will is going to be, his backstory is not quite what Andrews is. Is he going to be able to just drown him in money and attacks? That would be the thought. I mean, if you're Will, you're coming in. I saw he got Keller, big deal. He got Axiom, big deal. Those are very big pickups for him. And again, a guy that's never actually ran before. But Will has had much more to do with campaigns than Andrew has. I would say on the political savvy of running a campaign, Will certainly has a more impressive resume politically to run and been around it than Andrew does. And he's come out of the gate with some consultants that are, I mean, those are top guys. So I think his path is going to have to be. I'm going to outraise him 3-4 to 1. I'm going to bury Bailey in attacks, and there I'll be kind of a little bit of the Holly model, bring in outside money and attack the other guy, and where he can't get up. That could happen. That's a strategy. I don't think that anybody watches probably has a full grasp of Sharp's fundraising ability until he starts posting quarters, and a lot of his is going to be in the dark money whatevers. Speaking of dark money, I, if I forget, somebody remind me on the feed. There's a great dark money quote I want to bring to you guys. So the next two guys that I don't know if they're in or not, but are definitely candidates. Tony Luetkemeyer. Tony Luetkemeyer, great guy, strong law enforcement credentials, solid dude. Got $1 million in the bank. A sitting senator for 4 more years. Could probably put together another $1.5 million as a floor. $1 million for a statewide race now is the buy-in, the floor of what you'd have to have. He already has that. He's already got his. He's already got his ante. Where the other two are starting from zero. Tony can raise money. He's ran before. There was a competitive race against Rucker. That was a real race where he had to actually engage. He ran a real primary against Harry Roberts, so he knows what it's like to be in the thick of it. Tony, being a state senator, has got a lot of connections. If he runs, you're putting the troopers in a bad way. You're putting the sheriffs in a bad way. They're going to want to probably support Bailey, but Tony Luetkemeyer is their guy. And until he makes a decision, I think some of those major law enforcement endorsements are probably a little bit on hold, waiting to see what he does. Tony has the money and the ability to wait till after session to make a decision if he wants to. I think it'll work out just fine. I think I would bet you a beer Tony Luetkemeier's name. There's one or two things here. Tony Luetkemeier's on the Supreme Court in 2024, and he's been sitting there for a year, or his name's on the ballot August after next for something. If you're Tony, lieutenant governor probably has some appeal because you can keep your legal work, do legal work on the side. Secretary of State's a great, much more high profile job. But I think he wants to be attorney general. Does he run? I would say the more people that get in, common sense and say that helps Bailey. That goes to Tim Garrison. Now, Garrison, he's got the best resume probably of anyone. He's got some veterans credentials, and he was the confirmed by the Senate Donald Trump's United States Attorney from the Western District. Garrison, he looks like a model. I say that in a non creepy way. Garrison looks like if they picked like the young star politician, cast him in Hollywood. A guy like Tim Garrison walks out with a deep voice, and Tim Garrison, impeccable resume, checks every box. From Southwest Missouri, would be the only Southwest Missouri candidate. Um, Definitely, if he runs, he's a formidable contender. After that, I don't know. You start going through the list of people. Bill Corrigan is such a talented. I mean, Bill Corrigan, if he was 10 years younger when the Republicans took over, he could be governor. Bill Corrigan's like everybody that knows him raised what a great guy is. I'm pessimistic he actually runs for attorney general. He's a sitting judge. Uh, I wouldn't be surprised to see people try to get him to come and play a major role in the office. Bill Corrigan is just everybody that knows him talks about what a great guy he is. I don't know anybody that doesn't have a lot of regard for Bill Corrigan. I doubt he leaves the judgeship to run. Kurt Schaefer, the same thing. He's got such a good position. A lot of this was Kurt was sort of the guy that if the governor didn't find somebody and he wanted somebody to do a great job in the office, Kurt Schaefer would be a phenomenal attorney general. Um, he's got such a great position with Lathrop. I think there were people in the legal community asking Kurt to consider it as much as Kurt was considering it. So I don't think Kurt leaves his great position with Lathrop to do that to run. I'm not 100% sure he would have left it to do it, but sign of knowledge. This week, with sign of knowledge, this is actually the Stein I bought for Caitlin Shalhorn because she's from Lebanon, but she came to the Missouri Times from Lebanon via New York. So this is her Babe Ruth Stein that I'm drinking out of. I was thinking about Caitlin this morning, so thought I'd break it out. This was bought by me, for Caitlin, but I told her she has to come back, which I hope she will soon, and drink out of it herself. I guess you can pour wine in this, but if you could drink this full of wine, I mean, that's stout. Let's look around here. Oh, the I've got a question about state senate races. We'll get to that, but first, I was watching this Sam Bankman-Fried, right? And it was interesting to me to see how all these people. I mean, Bernie Madoff, right? He looked like Merrill Lynch. Like if there's a guy named Merrill Lynch, he would look like Bernie Madoff, right? Well, this kid looked just like who would give him money, right? Just shocking that people would give it like Bernie Madoff of the Ponzi scheme. I'm like, yeah, he looks like a Ponzi scheme. I get that. But this kid looks like the kid you wouldn't loan $20 to on the side of the street. Um, very odd situation. Um, so anyhow, I can't believe this kid fleeced those guys for all that money, but he did, and this is the quote. So this is the problem. When you give a lot of money, it's funny. You would think you would get protection. Actually, you become a bit of a target because you're not giving the money to like a prosecutor. You're giving the money to politicians, other stuff. Who, when you get in trouble, they run for the hills. So he's like, he gave all this money to Democrats, and then he gave this great quote. Now he doesn't want to look like just a Democrat because then he puts the Democrats in the position of having to they'll have to go harder on him. And he's not dumb, obviously. He gave this wonderful quote. He says, some of the effect of, he's talking to this blogger, somebody with a YouTube page. And he's like, I gave to Democrats because I, believed in them, thought it was a good thing. So I also gave to Republicans. He's trying to dig out of that hole so they can get pigeonholed. That way MSNBC or the Post or somebody can say, oh, he gave to both parties. He says, I gave to Republicans, but I gave them in dark money contributions. And his quote was, I didn't want to deal with all that. Journalists are so liberal, they freak the fuck out, was his quote. If you give to Republicans, who's not going to deal with that? I'm like, wow. Even a financial guy understands the game. I was just the intuitive intelligence to know. And I'll tell you what, Greg Keller, I used to say, he was always a big proponent of dark money. I was like, just give the money, put your name on it, be a man, step up and let the chips fall. If somebody wants to complain, well, just go out behind the bar and fight them, right? And Keller would be like, "Oh, no. Republicans are supposed to be sissies and whiners because Greg's from Ladue. So, AKA St. Louis people, sissies and whiners." And I was like, just put your name on your check. It don't matter. It'll be fine. Well, I tell you, this guy's maybe Greg was right about that because that would be that's a very logical way to do it. The media's liberal, so I give to liberals openly, and they praise me. And I give to Republicans dark money because the media will freak out. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is what Greg said. I'm like, no way. But then the Sam Bankman-Fried may have proved Greg's dark money argument better than anybody I've ever seen. State Senate races. Let's do a real quick look. There's one thing I'll bring up before we get into that. Courtyard by Marriott brings it. You're here in the streaming studio. I appreciate the notes about the better sound. That's Kelton, Will West, the new streaming studio. I think Mark Twain and Harry Truman both agree. The question I had, the two questions. One, why is the Courtyard by Marriott better? I'll tell you why. A, The Courtyard by Marriott is better because it's the newest hotel, which always matters. I don't care what you say. It's the nicest. It has the best restaurant. It has the best bar. It's the cleanest. The rooms are spacious. It's an outstanding location. I highly recommend it. Um, uh, you just cannot go wrong. The problem you have right now is getting in. Since they've started sponsoring the midweek update, the capacity there is booked out. So if you're coming to Jeff City, do yourself a favor. You have a down week. You know what days you're going to come to the Capitol next month. Book your hotel now. Go to the link, Courtyard by Marriott, Jeff City. Book now because if you just show up here thinking I'll grab a room at the Courtyard, like Scott said, so I don't look like a JV loser, I don't look like a W2 Republican, I don't look like a K1 Republican. Well, K1 Republicans stay at the Courtyard. W2 Republicans, I don't know. Van down by the river, maybe. I'm not sure. Uh, do it right. Come to Jeff City for the full experience. Do the Courtyard by Marriott. Don't screw yourself. And when you do, text me and say, yeah, okay, fine. I owe you a beer. I expect every time I go to the Courtyard that the bartender has 4 or 5 Bud Lights that I don't have to pay for by guests that took my advice and went to the Courtyard and they leave a beer for me, as you do, as is customary, as the hillbilly way. It's like drinking from the stein of knowledge before you make your hotel choice. Just go to the Courtyard by Marriott. Trust me. It's the number one hotel, the stein of knowledge. What is behind you, Scott? Well, so we got the stein of knowledge that my man Marshak from Jeffco gave me. Mo Chris Coster for Governor Button. That's me and Tashar talking. Twain, Truman, Victor Callahan endorsed mug that I like to give to people that he doesn't like, which is, so I tell you about Victor Callahan. The way this works is Victor, the list of people that Victor didn't like was so expansive that AT&T wanted to help out back in the 80s. So they invented the modern phone book, which is a complete list of everyone Victor hates. And then in the digital age, it was hard to keep track of folks. So this dude from Stanford or whatever quit Harvard or something, and he invented Facebook to keep a database of everyone Victor hates. So I like to give Callahan a Doris. This was from a man, the birthday boy last week, Joe Nodell from Power Bluff, my Intimidator Stein, a Central Missouri Mule, couple Stein, my Cattleman hat, little Gussie Bush Stein. Here you got Otto von Bismarck, Jack Buck, Whitey Herzog, a triumvirate of great German leaders. Well, I don't know about Jack, but his voice was great. A signed ball has some cards, and we got our Bush Stadium mug. The Ozark Equalizer, my friend Gene Oakley gave me. Then in case I need a dip. Then I got this a railroad spike I got from Warsaw at the museum there in Benton County. Buddy Roger Reedy and I got to go check that place out. We'll wrap up here with state senate races. Looking ahead, look ahead to St. Charles County. Bill Eigel retiring, running for governor. Speaking of that race, Bill Eigel is running the most aggressive race so far. He's attacking the person who would be the top guy in the polls, Jay Ashcroft. Everybody has assumed that I've talked to, oh, what's he really running for? I think the guy's really running for governor. Now, I've been wrong before, but and the tell is you would do all the same stuff. Great website, great social media presence. He got to go to Perryville, the Rome of the plain of the Midwest. Lucky man to get to go to Perryville. But he's attacking Ashcroft. And if you were going to slide down to another race, you wouldn't do that. So the folks that think maybe he's not in this, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. I think he's in the race right now. I mean, I just think what he's doing is what you would do if you were in this race for real. So anyway, I think Bill's running and running a very good race so far. That's actually, I mean, if you're going to be in this race, you're going to have to attack Jay Ashcroft. His polling number is so high, you're going to have to attack him to win. And the one that's doing that is Bill. So state senate real quick. I think Phil Cristofanelli is by far the favorite. He might even escape a primary. Might. A serious primary. He'll have a primary, but I think it's possible Phil is a good enough politician. He'll be a tremendous senator, just a tremendous senator. I think he might slip to a primary. I think he has a good shot. David Gregory for Koenig's seat. Here's the thing. David Gregory has a lot of your connections that normally like the candidate that would be like a Rowden Republican would have. But David Gregory has the one thing. He knows David Stewart. When I say he knows David Stewart, I'll call you back in a minute, Altman. He actually knows David Stewart, right? Like legitimately, like personally. He contributed to his auditor's race. Gregory can raise money. Gregory has the most political talent. And sometimes, frankly, the conservative caucus guys, I guess you'd say, the Igel Republicans, they've not always had the person with the most political skill at times. they've had to kind of messaging and some shoe leather and things. Well, in this situation, with Mary Elizabeth Coleman, they backed the person with the most political skill. And I think it's a very powerful connection when the person with the most political skill can connect with the folks that are the best with the activists. And in David Gregory, just like with Mary Elizabeth, you have the person in that race. I mean, I'm shocked if anybody has more political skill than David Gregory running. Those two things coming together is a very powerful, a powerful package. And again, I think he's a guy that you're going to see, Lincoln Huff probably be happy to serve with, and you're gonna see, Jim Lemke be glad to help, and that's Jim Lemke's backyard. I think Doug Beck will have a race. I don't think it's gonna that district was drawn to make it even more Democratic. It was already Democratic. Doug's a tough hill to climb. Doug is not Doug's he's hard to put the labels that Democrats lose on Doug Beck. You just swing it down. If Elaine Gannon, if she runs for reelection, she'll win, no problem. If she doesn't, I would say you'll have maybe Marshak, the sheriff of Jeffco, maybe Mike Henderson, maybe Dale Wright, somebody. You'll replay the election when it was Sism and the other more right wing candidate and Gannon. You'll probably have some right winger from St. Francis County just because you always seem to anymore. Um, we'll see. So kind of swinging through there, you'll have the Boone County seat. That should be a Democrat seat now. Jennifer Bukowski could win that because she's not your typical Republican. I don't think anybody besides Jennifer Bukowski can win that state Senate seat for the Republicans. Stephen Weber may run. Judy Baker, I think, has a claim that it's her turn. I thought Brian Trees would be such a great senator. You can't even imagine. But I think he's going to do MoDOT. David Tyson Smith is a very talented legislator. I would say Weber starts out maybe the marginal favorite because he's proven he can raise money, and he's got a great story. He'd run well in a general. Um, and if Jennifer Bukowski's not doesn't isn't courted to do that, I don't know who you have. Now I don't. There could be somebody in Columbia that's not in office, but I'm not. I mean, you're whoever takes that on. Boone County as a place becoming more Democrat when you factor in the city of Columbia. I think that's gonna flip to the Democrats. If you don't have a Jennifer Bukowski type candidate or her, I think that's going to be the primary is the race for the Democrats. And in that case, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how much money David Ty Smith can raise. It'll be interesting to see how people do agree that Judy Baker's paid her dues and want to see her back. A lot of shaking out still to do in that Democrat primary, but I think those are the three that are probably the most discussing making a run. Flipping through, I'm you could see another situation where the Iowa Republicans field challengers to all of the incumbents. You could see a situation where some people field incumbents the other way. That you're more Ronald Reagan Republicans go field candidates against the conservative caucus members. We'll see. It will be very interesting. I think that St. Louis County will probably have a primary just because it does. St. Louisans, that's just the way I would assume it will be. David Gregory will be favored from the moment he goes all the way through. Then Phil Crispinelli will be the favorite. They'll both be the quality of senator goes up when you got guys like that in there. They're just very talented politicians, whatever you think of them. Columbia, any of those three folks on the Democrat side would be great. Jennifer Bukowski could be part of transforming a Republican Party. She's really good if she chose to do it. I don't know. I've only heard people say they want her to do it. I've never heard her even respond to anybody about doing it. So I've only heard people say yes, she'd be perfect, and they're right about that probably. It will take someone like that to win that seat. Kurt Schaefer, not typical. Caleb Browd, not typical. Jennifer Bukowski follows the same. Browd maybe the most typical, but big shoes to fill for Caleb Browden. That's if this lawsuit doesn't come in. So you got a lawsuit come through. Hatfield's doing it. It's challenging the Senate map. Look, District 12 and the great Northwest has issues. There are legitimate things to talk about there. Now, if that were to happen, you have Denny Hoskins seats up, Curtis Gregory. Doug Ritchie says he's running for speaker, so I guess he's not in the race. So Curtis Gregory is definitely the favorite. You'll have someone from the Kansas City suburbs run against the rural guy. It's just the way they do it. It'll be rural versus urban, and I don't know. We'll see. Curtis Gregory is the kind of guy who could be governor of the state of Missouri. Um, but I'm sure because of that, he'll have a primary. and it'll be tough. But I mean, Curtis is a talented guy. He's your favorite for sure. If they challenge that map, I think you could see a district drawn that eliminates this. If they Hatfield submitted some maps, but I don't think that's not how they'll do it. From what I've told, if they rule in his favor, which is very possible, I mean, look, Chuck wins. Just ask the old boys at the AG's office. Chuck Hatfield's a winner. Um, he, is what it is. So if you go down through here, I don't think they'll take his map, but they're not going to draw Rusty Black and incumbent senator out. So you'll draw a kind of a central Missouri district that would take out pretty much the part of Denny Hoskins' new district, the one Curtis Gregory's in. I would say Chillicothe and Marshall will be in the same Senate district if it's redrawn, which would take him out of that race. We'll see what happens. That lawsuit's very interesting. I don't predict what judges are going to do. It's a bad business, but I could see the judges admitting there's some issues, but saying, I don't know that a new map would be better. I could see them totally saying, yeah, there's some issues with how that was put together. Um, I think that, a new map could be tweaked a little, but if it's tweaked, where the tweaking will take place is in the great Northwest. And how it's tweaked could be changes for the old Johnson County, now the kind of, what's it, Clay County over, ex-Bourbon, Kansas City over through Marshall, district. That will be one of the changes if I had to guess. If they have to change the map, that's where the epicenter of the change in. And it's Ralph explained to me one time how when you change this, how it ripples around the state. So there'll be other ripples that are affected. But it would surprise me greatly if they redrew a map. They drew out a sitting senator. You might draw a change of district of someone who only has 2 years left. I don't think they're going to radically change or put two sitting senators together that have to run again. That would be surprising. What's not surprising is this week on the show, no St. Louis, just mid Missouri. Anytime they're on TWMP.tv, Wayne Wallingford, I'm telling you, there's no one with a better resume. The guy's he's negotiated with warlords. He's flown like 300 combat missions. He is the 50th anniversary. So the story is they were the Paris peace talks. The United States wanted out. They just wanted their POWs. They were going to leave, and the fall of Hanoi and all things. So the Vietnamese had all these conditions. So Nixon said, "Drop the big guns." So they flew like 120 planes a day for 11 days. They skipped Christmas and just bombed them to the Stone Age. Apparently, then they were very ready to return the POWs and move on, and it ended. But after that bombing, that's when the Paris peace talks picked back up. The Vietnamese were very interested in getting out, and the war ended. And but it was those guys got to come home a lot because a guy like Wayne Wallingford was flying with the B-52s up there. I guess just bombing the heck out of Vietnam. Thank all of you for a great year. Very appreciative. Remember Courtyard by Marriott if you're booking your stay for the legislative ball. I gotta figure if it's not sold out, it's close. So get on that. And then when you come to Jeff City, do yourself a favor. Courtyard by Marriott. It's a place to stay. Thank you guys, and we'll see you Sunday on This Week in Missouri Politics with Wayne Wallingford and Dan Houks, the Kingfish of Warrensburg. And we'll see you next week back here for Midweek Update.